Welcome back to the next session. In this class, we are looking at yet another very interesting topic as a part of our continuous discussions on themes related to globalization and Indian society. In the last two sessions, we had a discussion on caste and its continuing influence or significance in the market economy. In this class, we are looking at gender dowry and migration systems of Indian IT professionals, published in Indian Journal of Gender Studies in 2005, written by Siang Biao. So again, I hope you realize the relevance of this particular topic, because IT, information technology, was brought to India as a result of globalization, and India became a very important player in the export of IT professionals, and India's GDP gained significantly. Thousands of people, in fact, lakhs of people were migrated to the US and to other countries, and that has really changed the face of employment, especially since 1990s. So here this author tries to look at a very interesting topic of dowry in connection with this whole new economy and demand for IT professionals and their social mobility, their migration to US. It's though the study is not based on US, but though the study is published in 2005, quite a lot of other particular aspects must have changed, but still it's something important to look at that. Now, the spectacular growth of information technology, IT industry, and the hyper mobility of IT professionals are among the most significant social developments in India in the recent times. I don't think I need to elaborate this, isn't it? People whom we know, our own relatives, our own friends, people whom we know have completed either an engineering degree or a science, a degree in science, and then they become IT professionals and they work here for some time, then they migrate to, then they go to US, and either they settle down there or they come back after some time, and that has really changed the face of Indian service industry maybe for the last 3 decades. So large scale migration to the US and other countries, but still US constitutes the most important place of migration, and that is the dream destination for most of the scholars. And if you look at that the IT professionals are migrating, that is fine. But the moment you try to look at what is the gender of these people among men or women, who are the most people who are migrating, then undoubtedly we know that women are underrepresented in that migration. It's men who go there, either being sent from their host companies for a job for a stipulated period in time, onshore kind of assignments, and later brought back, or people who are recruited by say body shopping agencies or recruitment agencies and who go there. There is a major underrepresentation of women. So the author is trying to ask very interesting question: why that this system really favors men in comparison to that of women? And for example, if you contrast this scenario with that of nurses, nursing is another profession where you have large number of migration from India to that of the first world, especially that of the US, to the European things, and to the Gulf countries. And there the picture is completely different. There the vast majority of the nurses who migrate and who eventually settle down are women, and the number of male nurses are extremely negligible. But here the dynamics works in a different way. There the dynamics works in a completely different way. That the migration of IT professionals is gendered, but also that the migration process as a whole is gendered in its construction. That is, gender relations are central in producing the migration system itself. So she makes a very interesting argument that it's very easy for us to understand that it's so, of course, men are the people who predominantly tend to migrate, not women. That's fine. But she has something more to say. She's talking about an ecosystem in which the gender plays a very important role in facilitating the migration of men. Okay. So why that? How gender plays a very important role? How gender appears as a very important category as well as process that facilitates the availability of these many IT professionals who are willing to migrate. How does gender work in that? What is the role of women in that? That is the line of inquiry. So, how the new dynamism of global economy rather than geographical mobility per se intersect with gender relations. How the globalized and volatile IT industry has affected marriage and dowry practices in local society, and how in turn the institution of dowry functions as a means of mobilizing resources to support the production of the IT labor force. Very interesting set of questions. What is dowry to do with IT professionals, or what is dowry to do with the migration of IT professionals to the US or to the European countries? We may not make immediate connections, very strong connections immediately, but a very interesting analysis is made by this author. We can see that dowry plays a very important role. Gendered roles, what a woman is expected to do, what a man is expected to do, they play a very important role in creating this pool of highly mobile IT professionals who are men. Okay, and what happens to women, what happens to so all these things are very, very interesting kind of questions. So she has done fieldwork in Sydney, and please keep in mind it's done in 2000 and 2001. It's almost published in 2005, so almost 15-year-old study, but the arguments are still important. So the fieldwork is done in Australia and also in Andhra Pradesh and in the capital city Hyderabad, and also in New Delhi. Okay, so it's not a study that is done in the US, but study was done in Australia and in Andhra Pradesh and in open-ended interviews with 180 IT professionals and relevant institutes, and lived with around about 20 Indian IT workforce in Sydney and Hyderabad. So this is a kind of an ethnographic study. I am not going into the details of the excerpts of interviews and other thing, but I hope you know that ethnography is a important anthropological method where the scholar spends a lot of time, researcher spends a lot of time with his or her interlocutors, their respondents, many times often live with them, interact with them very closely, observe things very closely. So that gives a lot of insights and in-depth information about how things work. And here the author has conducted 180 open-ended interviews. So open-ended interviews are interviews without any rigid structure. You initiate a discussion and then allow the respondent to answer whichever way he or she wants, and you only try to steer this conversation into certain directions. So you will be able to really listen to more natural expressions and elaborations of these people. So the Indian workers' proficiency in English, a relatively advanced higher education system as a result of the Nehruvian development agenda, and connections with IT companies in the West established by earlier migrant professionals. So these are all, we know that these are all the factors that are widely shown as the reasons why India got an advantage over a host of other countries in the field of IT, especially in comparison with China and a number of other Asian countries. Our relative proficiency in English and the fact that we have had a host of engineering institutions, especially IITs. You know that IITs have a very high special status among the IT professionals, because IITs produce a lot of graduates who eventually settle down in US. So including Sundar Pichai and a host of others, and which were all this IIT system, this education system established during Nehruvian development agenda, and connections with IT companies in the West established by the earlier migrant professionals. All these things really make India as a very important supply place for IT professionals. A more fundamental reason is that Indians form a cheap and flexible labor force. This may be something not very nice to listen to that, but that's a fact. A host of Indian companies take so many people from India to work in the US because it's much cheaper. It's much cheaper to pay Indians than hiring the Native Americans whose pay would be much higher than that of the Indian people. So India provides much cheaper and abundant workforce. So in the United States, H1B1 IT workers reported to be paid 25% less than an average and not paid any native worker, and are not paid any compensation for overwork. and they are more flexible with the willingness to be laid off. So they are less demanding, labor laws are different, and they know that they will be laid off, and they are fine with that. They can be laid off for a couple of months, and they will stay back and they will look for something else. They will get there. So the author says that these kind of uncertainty and high risk, men find it more suitable. Maybe 3 or 4 men come together and then they stay together even at a period when they don't have any job, and women find it more difficult. And recruitment through body shops, unlike the conventional recruitment agents who introduce employees to employers, body shops manages workers for employers. And the practice of benching. Body shop is a very, very common thing. It's not a recruitment agency who recruit you and then supply to a particular company. Here, body shopping, this particular agency themselves, they supply people. After some time, they take them back and then give it to somebody. So basically, you work for an intermediary, and you simply do not have any permanent kind of an employer. And also this practice of benching. I am sure that you know that for a temporary period, maybe even months together, you will be paid maybe less amount, but you are not assigned any job because there is simply no job available. This is many times seen as before retrenching, before dismissing people. So it's a highly, of course, it's a highly paid job when you take this conversion rate into account. But even otherwise, it's a highly volatile kind of a market where men tend to thrive in comparison that of women. And why is that kind of a situation? How does gender work in that? That is a kind of an inquiry of this particular article. So women are deemed less suitable for benching, because as I mentioned, benching requires quite a lot of flexibility, the ability to live without social support, high stress scenario, and everybody seems to agree that women are less deemed suitable for benching. Despite the importance of work done by wives, a working wife is not always culturally desirable. Now, this is another very interesting thing that we know, that how certain families, certain communities insist that their wives need not work. So wife working is seen as unnecessary. Wife working is seen as unacceptable to a large extent. Wife working is seen as some kind of an unwanted kind of a scenario. So why that? Because the community or the family gives so much of importance to family, importance to take care of the husband, take care of the children, to look after their future, to look after their education, and to keep the family running. So even educated wives are many times encouraged not to look for employment, but to take care of the family. And this this is a very, very interesting topic. This is a very interesting topic because on the one side, it reinforces the gender roles in family, that the father as the breadwinner and the mother as the household maker. So it never comes to our mind that father can take an active participation in the household chores. Father can take part in cooking, in cleaning, in washing, in taking care of the children, and mother can also work, provided both husband and wife take equal responsibility of all the household activities. That never really occurs to us, to a large number of us. And because it's been culturally conditioned, that we have seen throughout our families, throughout our communities, that's how we typically understand our family. I don't need to elaborate that. We all know that how at the same, that the tragedy of this whole thing is that men are also put under tremendous pressure. We can't even accept a man who is not working but taking care of the child and the family while the wife is working. So that is a point of ridicule, isn't it? That man will have absolutely very, very low social status and esteem. He will be seen as a henpecked or a host of adjectives will be given to him. So our cultural conditioning about gender roles is something very, very interesting. So there is a snippet of an interview here. One informant in Sydney compared himself with his brother-in-law in the United States. Both my wife and I have to work here. When we come home, I am tired, my wife is tired. In the US, my brother-in-law alone makes more money than two of us. My sister doesn't need to work. She can look after the family and kids. he decided to go to the United States, where his wife could stay at home. Sorry. Okay. So, this again you know that that's a cultural framework is in mind, that my wife does not need to work, and I am sure that whether the wife really wants to work or not is hardly a consideration, and many times women simply do not have the space or the right to make that choice. That choice is already taken, and especially when women are bombarded with so much of responsibilities and pressure both at home as well as at family, many of them tend to leave the job and then stay at home. And never this possibility is seen as a possibility by the men. If both are facing equally, equal, if both are given equal salary and both face equal pressure, then what prevents the man from sacrificing his job and then taking care of the family never occurs. So, the wives contribute to the construction and sustaining of the flexibility of the IT labor system in various ways. She elaborates in the paper by providing a support system at home, but they also suffer due to it. It has been documented in other migration cases that the pressure the husbands face in the destination countries often contribute to the domestic violence against women. And we have had several films about which tell the story of women, unemployed women in the US. I know that I hope you know that there are several very popular films, very interesting telling stories about English Manglish and a host of other films. Then H4 visa holders are deported immediately once they are divorced by the spouses. This dependency renders Indian housewives in the United States vulnerable. If you are divorced, if you are no longer the wife of a IT professional, you could be deported. And these women who are alone in a foreign land are quite vulnerable. Now, this particular study explores how particular gender relations in India associated specifically with the institution of dowry intertwine the body shopping system. That is the, as I mentioned, that is the focus of this particular study. Now, this study fieldwork, as I told, it's done in Australia, also done in Andhra Pradesh. So, the community that she studies is two caste communities in Andhra Pradesh, the Kammas and the Reddys, as the two dominant agricultural caste in Andhra Pradesh who invested heavily in education institutions. There is high prevalence of dowry system among these two communities. While modernization and westernization were responsible for the establishment of modern dowry, globalization escalates the process. And there are a lot of interesting sociological study to tell that this practice of dowry is a very modern phenomenon. Maybe we have had more instances of men giving money to women, kanya, a host of terms, rather than men demanding money from the woman's thing. So, many scholars really identify this as a process brought in during the colonialism, where certain sections, especially the bureaucrats and others, were seen as very prestigious one, and then families of women were forced to bargain, to bid for them, and they were available for the highest bidder. So, very interesting connection with the colonialism, post-colonial economic transactions and that of the contemporary times. So, the globalization has not decreased the whole thing, even though you are exposed to a wide variety of ideas and things from across the globe, you do not tend to leave this particular practice, but it seems to have escalated it. An IT group of Kamma or Reddy caste working in a big company is expected to demand a dowry of rupees 80,000 to 2 million in Hyderabad, more than double that of a non-IT engineer. If the boy is US settled, the figure could go up to 5.5 million. And please keep in mind, this figure she records in 2000. She did the field work in 2000, and the article came out in 2005. And I am sure that this figure has gone much higher. It runs into crores now for a IT boy settled in US demands dowry in crores. So, interesting point. It's a surprise to many that IT professionals demand high dowries because they expect that highly educated professionals with a Western exposure would break with this kind of a tradition. That's a very interesting interesting argument, isn't it? Because taking dowry, first of all, it's illegal. Okay, giving and taking dowry is illegal. Secondly, we know that it's not a good practice. Okay, you are basically selling yourself to a rich person. You are not marrying another person based on your likeness. Your family decides that your life partner, and you simply go and oblige. But why that vast majority of the people do not say that we simply do not want dowry? Why that they can't say that? Okay, that is the point why dowry is so structurally ingrained in this whole business. So indeed, IT professionals are particularly proud that they can maintain Indian culture and at the same time succeed in the global IT market. Again, a very interesting question. How do Indian IT professionals maintain their so-called Indian culture in a foreign land? And dowry plays a very important role. Dowry, it's associated family relationships, family commitments, family obligations, family culture. And first of all, I would say, first and foremost, it is the practice of arranged marriage. Okay, the very fact that in spite of you being a professional with global exposure, with highest of the salary and highest of the educational qualification, you simply choose not to select your life partner. You simply leave that to your family, and family does that on a host of other considerations. And this practice, which we consider as so usual, so common, is something so strange to a host of other countries, a host of other societies, because they consider it as inconceivable, very strange. How can somebody not to choose, actively choose one's own life partner, because they are the one who are supposed to live with them? How can they give, permit parents and family to find that? So we know that even in India, even now, the number of people who get married outside one's own caste is less than 5%. So 95% of the people get married within caste, and this 95% could be mostly arranged marriages. Maybe the trend is slightly changing, but that is a predominant system. So there are numerous ways in which the IT professionals who have disembedded from India and who are settled down in foreign country want to cling on to certain Indian values and culture, and dowry assumes a central place in that. Among the IT professionals, arranged intra-jati marriage remains the norm, and a cross-caste love marriage brings suspicion on the entire family and may jeopardize the marriage prospects of siblings. I don't think I need to explain. We are living in an era where honor killing, okay, the relatives of the wife murders the boy, and that you have had several cases from across the states, from Kerala, from Tamil Nadu, from Karnataka, and we are telling the story in 2020, and because so much of value and notions of honor is attached with this whole question of intercaste marriage, especially if a girl gets married to somebody who is lower than her in the caste hierarchy. So migration tends to escalate rather than undermine the institution of dowry. Migration enlarges the scope of search for a match and makes economic calculations more central to marriage negotiation. So once once there are people are out for looking for alliances, this whole status that somebody is in US, it opens up quite a lot of possibilities. And if other factors are fine in terms of caste, subcaste, then horoscope, then economic transaction alone becomes the most contentious thing and the most important thing. The mobility of IT professionals also escalates dowry rates, because both dowry and being a mobile IT professional are loaded with tremendous cultural value related to the notion of Kudumba Gauravam, family prestige in Telugu. The anxiety to ensure, or more often to promote the Kudumba Gauravam, impels young male IT workers to attach importance to dowries at their own marriages and also to contribute their income to the sisters' dowries. So especially those who are coming from Andhra Pradesh or many communities across the country will be able to see that there's so much of importance associated with dowry. So it's not only about getting more money from another household, it is also seen as a very important indication of the value attached to the household in which this girl is supposed to come in. And there is a dowry from hard cash to that of an apartment, to car, to property, and a host of things. It varies, but mostly the families tend to attach so much of value to dowry because they see it as an indication of the value of their family that is given by the other family. A family is quite willing to exhaust its capacities to perform grand marriages for its daughters and then wait for the son's dowries to come. As a result, it is common for an IT professional's sisters to be married to an IT professional. Very interesting points. Usually, families would tend to pay huge dowry for their own family, to their own daughters, and even if this man, the IT professional, is elder to this girl and may exhaust all their money, and then bargain hard with their son who is an IT professional maybe in the US, so that maybe double the amount of money can be taken back. And this also gives an impression to the girl's family that this boy's family has no longer any liabilities. They have married off all their daughters, and all the money and the remaining house and other things will come to this man, to this IT professional. So, we are talking about very ruthless bargaining. We are talking about very ruthless economic considerations, but that's how it works. So, a fundamental reason for the reinforcement of the institution of dowry through the IT boom is its channeling of local resources to produce an IT labor force for the global market. In the local society, high dowry is seen as a direct reward to the groom's parents for their investment in the education. We mentioned that ever since 1990s, there has been a proliferation of education institutions, especially engineering institutions, and there's a mad rush for getting admission to IITs, but we know that IITs are very less in number. The seats are very less in number. So, there's a huge rush, there's a mad rush to enroll their children into coaching factories, which is an extremely expensive affair, and engineering education in private institutions are extremely expensive. So, this IT boy, this boy, engineering boy, is seen as an investment for the future financial returns by the parents. I know that it sounds very cynical, but this is a part of the reality. The amount of love and pressure and affection that is shown to people to do well in exam, to get higher ranks in entrance examination, also has this particular dimension of a much nasty calculations for material gains, where the person is virtually sold, auctioned and sold to the highest bidder. It's a sad state of affairs. In sum, the institution of dowry and the asymmetrical gender relations associated with it have not only made the production of male IT professionals for the global market financially feasible and culturally meaningful, but have also pressurized IT professionals to participate in body shopping so as to emigrate. The dowries paid to the Indian-based body shoppers directly subsidize the latter and the supply of IT laborers in the international market. So, she concludes the study by saying that how this dowry in a way really makes this kind of a Indian IT labor market such flexible with so many people who are willing to migrate, who have achieved this kind of educational qualification, who are ready to migrate, and how this whole process has been gendered. So, as she mentions in the introduction, it's not the gender dimension of this whole process is not only that there are more number of men who are migrating than women, but the whole process of migration, the whole creation of IT professionals and their marriage market and their availability for this body shopping jobs and their willingness to migrate and settle down there, to raise a family there, it's all been heavily gendered. All these processes are heavily influenced by the gender processes, and dowry plays a very important central role in that. So, I hope you would have found this essay interesting, because it brings up a very unusual relationship, topic of relationship between dowry and globalization and its effect on the Indian society. Okay. So, let's stop here. We will meet you for the next class later. Thank you.